In 2018, Rhode Island was one of the first states in the country and the first state in New England to approve sports betting. Now what happened was Rhode Island residents and people from Massachusetts and Connecticut would come to the Rhode Island casinos to engage in sports betting. Since then, we'll talk about it in a minute, Rhode Island has approved mobile sports betting, and that was relatively quickly. And so now Connecticut and Massachusetts have both approved sports betting, and all three have it on mobile devices. It's really a concern to me. As soon as you put sports betting on mobile devices, that increases the potential for problem gambling. Just looking at Rhode Island, the National Council on Problem Gambling director said if you put sports betting on mobile devices, you can expect an increase of 10,000 problem gamblers in the state of Rhode Island. Rhode Island's not a big state, and so that's a lot of people who have the increased potential for problem gambling. And I've been doing research on problem gambling, starting at casinos, but now with sports betting, for over 15 years. And there's been a lot of tragic situations that I've seen that hopefully, if we take action to prevent them, that's a good thing. The main concern, especially putting on mobile devices, is problem gambling. And the easier you make gambling, the more potential you have for problem gambling. Whether it's building a casino in your backyard or putting casinos increased around states. Two, and the big concern is putting gambling opportunities on mobile devices. That's the game changer. And particularly when we start talking about younger folks, they're used to doing everything on their phones. If you make gambling easier on mobile devices, problem gambling is expected to increase. The key concern is, lots of times before the Supreme Court came out with a decision that permitted sports gambling around the country, most of the folks would end up betting on the outcome of a game. Who's going to win the game, who's going to lose the game. Now, with it on mobile devices, you can bet multiple times during a game. Who's going to score the most points in the first half? Who's going to take foul shots? Who's going to have rebounds? It's going to be a lot more of an ability to gamble, and so that in and of itself can permit, for example, people to what they call as chase losses. Well, I've lost a couple of times, let me keep on betting to try to make it up. And that on mobile devices is very easy, and I'm very concerned about that in terms of the problem gambling situation. For any students who are in a state that permits gambling and gambling on mobile devices, there's increased potential for problem gambling. The National Council on Problem Gambling has profiled some of the folks that have problem gamblers who are sports bettors, and they tend to be younger, male, under the age of 35, educated, they're employed or have access to cash, and they're impulsive. Now, I've been teaching college students for over 30 years, and I'm a retired military officer. That describes a lot of folks in colleges and a lot of folks in the military. So I'm concerned about both groups. With respect to all issues with problem gambling and approval of casinos, sports betting, and pretty soon there's going to be online casinos that states will be considering. It's all state by state approved and regulated. So some states it's lower ages, some states it's higher ages. My first study was looking at people going in southeastern Connecticut. You had two of the largest casinos in the country, and I noticed that there was workplace fraud that was occurring for people who were getting addicted to gambling. And so what I did was, with another professor, Carol Hartley here at Providence College, we profiled the folks who were engaging in thefts from their workplaces. And so what we recommended for managers were different measures that could be taken to help prevent some of the problems that we were seeing in terms of workplace fraud. Since then, I've done another paper with Carol Hartley and Julia Camp from Providence College about state revenues from we've primarily focused on New England states, but how the states were benefiting from a revenue standpoint, but how we felt that they had obligation to fund problem gambling prevention and treatment programs with the funds that they were using. And so that paper came out, where I recently had a paper published with Carol Hartley and Christine Early looking at what auditors could be doing in casino regions to anticipate increased audit risk for people who might get addicted to gambling and steal from their workplace. And we think if auditors can be looking for that, they might be able to prevent tragic instances of people who end up getting involved in a workplace fraud. My concern is I've seen far too many tragic situations of people and they say a problem gambler impacts 6 other people negatively. Could be family members, could be significant others, could be people in their workplace. And so I'm really trying to prevent some of the potential for tragic situations that unfortunately I've seen in the past. And I think the main way that we're going to be able to do that is hopefully through education. We have a personal counseling center, and those folks do wonderful work. I'm a big fan of theirs. They've helped so many students in recent times as we move through the pandemic. But this is an area where I'm afraid they're going to see some increased business in the future of people who end up with a bad situation that they will help students work through. In addition, I think for any parent across the country, not just at Providence College, but if your son or daughter is attending a college where sports betting is approved in that state, you should have a conversation with your son or daughter about what's going on campus. How much sports betting is there? I think they will be surprised, depending on the school and the state, of just how much sports betting there is on college campuses. It's a big concern. When I look at what's happened, I'm really concerned about this whole issue with problem gambling with sports betting. When I first started doing this line of research, it was people going to casinos, and the proliferation of casinos across the country was resulting in increased opportunities for gambling and increased problem gamblers. Most of the folks who are engaging in going to casinos were not the young folks that are going to be engaging in sports betting. So this is a new group of potential problem gamblers that I'm really concerned about.